Brent Dowlin, the Fallible Man. He writes content of great videos on how to be a better father, how to be a better husband, how to be a better leader. It's geared towards men. Uh, in there, he discusses and has great videos on leadership and fitness. And he has two daughters, has a loving wife that does helps a lot with editing and talks about that, and just talks about how to better his slogan is be better tomorrow because of what you do today. Very interesting. I really enjoyed the conversation with him. He's has a military background. He works a full-time job. He does this Fallible Man on it as well, and it's just a lot of content. He puts out 3 videos a week, and again, it just kind of focuses on. There's so much fitness on. Like I said, he does some cooking ones as well. I really enjoyed the conversation. Hope you do too. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Nice to meet you, Brent. It's a pleasure.
Nice to meet you too, sir. There we go. Is that better?
Very good. Now, you're in Washington State. Is that correct?
I am. I am in central Washington, in the eastern part of the state.
Very nice. Very nice. I got a lot of great friends there. I love it there. So tell me, what do you think, after going through a lot of your content, and I just couldn't wait for this answer, what do you think of the term toxic masculinity?
Can you see the shirt?
Look at how coincidental is that? Look at
That is
that.
the newest line, essential masculinity.
Very
So,
interesting.
if you want a full answer, I'm
Please.
coming through okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe a little louder or a little closer,
Louder?
maybe.
Let me turn up the gain on this mic.
Oh, I think that's better.
We'll get that a little closer to my mouth, actually. Better?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, sir. No, I am. The term toxic masculinity actually really upsets me because it's ignorance at best, right? All you have to do is look through the entire world at large. You can look through all of nature, and there's always a yin and a yang, right? There's always two parts to make a whole, and so it's like I take exception with the term of calling feminism bad or wrong as a problem as well, because there are bad men, okay, but we don't judge an entire species based on the handful of bad men, right? And that's what toxic masculinity really screams out to me is we're going to take the very worst of society. We're going to take the rapists, we're going to take the murderers, we're going to take the child abusers, and we're going to say this is what men are, which is you wouldn't, if you did that with women or we did that with any other species of animal, right? If we went, you know what? That cow has mad cow disease, so all cattle are just bad. right? You can hear the absurdity when you apply it to a different group of people. But for some reason, we've gotten into this swing where there's no meeting in the middle. And so for women to thrive, there's this idea that we must suppress men. Men are a patriarchy. Men have suppressed us for years, and so we must suppress them instead of just a simple, you know, were things always equal? No. But the world wasn't always equal. Were things always perfect? No one ever claimed that, right? That's just absurd at the very foundational level of it, right? Human beings are not perfect. No species is perfect in the way it is, especially not humans. We're faulty. That's where the fallible man comes from. I have no misgivings about my imperfections. I know I don't have all the answers. I know I'm not perfect, and I'm not trying to say I am, but understanding that sets you up for positive direction forward, right? So, no one ever said that men and the way things used to be was the perfect way things need to be. However, saying that everything about our history is bad is asinine at best, right? Human beings didn't start 100 years ago or 200 years ago. Human beings have been around for thousands of years. And to throw out thousands of years of establishment and say it's all been wrong. Well, masculinity brought us out of mud huts and out of caves. Masculinity made us lord over animals and the world at large, right? Masculinity plowed fields. I live in the middle of a farming community. Quite sorry, quite possibly.
You're fallible.
Yeah. I get excited and start talking too fast. Quite possibly, I live in one of the most amazing engineering feats of modern farming. Central Washington is all desert. Everybody thinks of Washington and they think of Seattle. I live in the high desert.
High
In
desert.
fact,
Yeah.
most of the state looks that way. So but I mean, we are in rich farm country here. We grow more potatoes than the whole state of Idaho in my county alone.
Hmm.
We grow some of the best asparagus in the world. We provide hay for tons of the world's population. We ship it all over the world. We are in a farming rich community because back when coming out of the Great Depression, I think it was Roosevelt commissioned the Grand Coulee Dam, right? And we built this modern marvel of a feat called the Grand Coulee Dam, which is a massive, massive undertaking. But on top of that, they diverted water from the dam up through a series of tunnels bigger than buses and created a whole nother lake called Banks Lake. Banks Lake is like 26 miles long.
Wow.
It's a giant irrigation project. Water flows out of Lake Roosevelt, which is what Grand Coulee Dam created at the Columbia River, and pushes water up to Banks Lake, which then pushes water down to thousands and thousands of acres of desert to make it rich farmland.
Hmm.
That was masculine, hard-working men. That was our father's generations and our grandfather's generations. You know, you see the image of the men eating lunch on the steel girder, right? That was that generation. And people died building that thing. I mean, it's like any other massive undertaking. It is so big that all the concrete in it isn't actually dry, and it's
Hmm.
years later.
Wow.
But masculinity has paved our greatest accomplishments. And now we're going, nope, it's toxic. It's all bad, right? Yes, women, I have two daughters.
Yeah, you
I
do.
have seven nieces.
Hmm.
I am all for feminism. I'm all for women's rights. But you don't have to crush one to have the other. You don't have to turn on the people who have paved the way for the world we live in to empower somebody else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I certainly understand what you're saying. And so What's a better term?
Well,
Essential
so
masculinity.
yeah, so for everybody listening on the audio show, I'm wearing a shirt. It's my new line. It says essential masculinity. It has the
Yeah.
word toxic crossed out because it's a piece of the pie, right? You can't have one without the other, right? For lack of a better example, there's no yin without the yang, right? If you look through all ancient philosophies, if you look through every culture in the world, right? There's a male and a female. There's a masculine and a feminine. It's part of a whole. And so yeah, there are bad men in the world. There are also bad women in the world. So to label one or the other as bad, right, is dumb. So I think masculinity is essential. I mean, it's what brought us this far. You wouldn't tell the men who built the Grand Coulee Dam, that masculine, tough veneer you put on is just, it's unimportant. Oh, tell that to a guy working 16 hours a day with his hands, taking his life in his hands every single day. Tell that to a soldier on the battlefield. That masculine drive has guarded and driven our soldiers for generations. It has driven us to conquer new lands. It's driven us to build sky rises all the way up in the clouds. But, so you can label it what you want. I just want to take the negative label off it, right? Because masculinity in itself isn't good nor bad. Like I said, there are bad men, there are bad women. But masculinity in itself is ambiguous. It is not one thing or another. It's just a state, right? Realistically, masculinity comes down to a cocktail of chemicals in your body. Any man has a masculine nature, and it's because of a cocktail of chemicals that are biologically in us, right? A boy will grow up to be a male, an adult male. It doesn't necessarily make him a man,
Right.
but he is masculine in his biological nature.
Very interesting. Now, I have daughters as well. I have two, just like yourself. And one of their favorite movies is Hidden Figures. So we have NASA and how we went to the moon, but we have a lot of very intelligent women that were a major part of that movement. So, you would uh, I think finding the combination of the two would be is where it should be. But like you say, in many of your content is so great in the Fallible Man. But to get to that point, hopefully we can get there where women will have more of a chance by not putting down the man, but hopefully working along with and maybe even excelling in some areas.
It was a great movie.
Yeah.
I've seen the movie. I love movies, but it was a great story, and I love stories like that. Not just because it brought some recognition to a group of very hardworking women who, I mean, my God, we wouldn't have gotten there without them.
Mm.
They contribute. My older sister has a master's in defense and strategic studies. Her thesis is in the National Library of Congress,
Hmm.
and it's on space defense.
Wow.
She speaks 7 languages. She went back to school and got a second master's over the course of a summer while teaching summer school. She is achievement upon achievement. Her intellect is unquestionable. There are amazing women out there,
Mm.
and no one wants to hold them back. I don't understand, right? I saw the Women's March, I guess it would have been the year before last, because of the COVID lockdown. So it would have been 2019 probably in DC. I was watching it on the news, and it's like women are marching around wearing private area shaped hats on their heads, protesting the patriarchy and demanding more rights. We live at a time where women have more rights than they have ever before in history, and on every conceivable notion are equal to men as far as their rights. In fact, you actually have more rights as a woman because, right, you look at the Me Too movement. A woman doesn't have to prove anything with that movement. A woman can level allegations and it will destroy a man's life and career, whether they're true or not, because we try them in the court of public opinion. There have been numerous men who have been exonerated of the charges, and it still destroyed their career path. It destroyed every opportunity they had. They're marked for life. If a man cries wolf, nobody cares, right? Terry Crews came out and said that he was sexually assaulted, and the whirlwind of cruelty that followed about people making fun of him
Right.
was unbelievable.
Yeah, bit of a double standard there, it would seem, in a lot of those cases. You say, kind of the theme, and I don't know if it's changed at all through all your content. Again, the Fallible Man, you're Brent Dowlin, and be better tomorrow because of what you do today. And that's very kind of horizontal. It's very, it applies to everybody.
It does. And that's, I mean, at the base of what I do, like tonight, I actually have a live stream I'm doing on my YouTube channel and Facebook, and we're talking about resilience. I speak and aim my content directly at men. Does it apply to everybody? Yes, it's absolutely applicable to everybody, right? In fact, I know several women who will join tonight and watch the live stream. A lot of the time, content I create has good lessons for everybody, but I am focused specifically on men because there's so little content aimed directly at men,
Hmm.
right? And men have I don't want to say tribalistic because that's not accurate. I want to say a brotherhood
Hmm.
to, if we throw out content that is for everybody and we say, hey, this is for everybody, men tend to kind of push it off and be like, ah, uh, I've heard some phenomenal speakers over the years. My father was a minister. I grew up doing large scale church events, thousands of people.
Hmm.
And so I grew up listening to just amazing speakers. And the women in the audience always took more out of it than the men do, because men are not good at accepting help. We've been taught that that is weakness to ask for help. We've been taught and conditioned that it makes us less of a person or less of a man to ask for help. And so we automatically shut down on joint content, right? We can put 1,000 people in the room, means 500 men, 500 women. The women are going to take more out of that keynote than the men are, because the men are already going, what are you doing? What are you trying to tell me? You saying I'm not smart enough? You say I'm not a good enough dad? You say I'm not a good enough husband? What makes you such a good husband, right? We're critical because we don't want to be told, because if we believe that we're lacking or we need help, we must be weak.
Hmm.
So I aim my content specifically at men and try and be as transparent as possible, because if I come across and try and pretend I'm perfect and try and say that I have all the answers, right, there's got to be some vulnerability there. But at the same time, I still have to be masculine enough that men respond to that, because men respond to a hierarchy. Our minds process things in a hierarchical format. That's why men traditionally do really well in like the military and stuff like that. We like that hierarchical order. I know this person is in charge and this person, right? There's a pecking order to it, if you want to use that term. We function better with that. So I still have to present myself in a masculine enough manner that men will respond to me, but with enough vulnerability that they can go, well, maybe this guy's not just like flat out trying to tell me what to do. Maybe he's going, hey, I think of it more as a barroom conversation.
Hmm.
And that's what I want to do, right? Men are better at communicating side by side. If you look at it from a physical perspective, right? Women, when they talk to each other or when they talk to a man, they want to go face to face. When men communicate best, we're in the car, we're sitting at the bar, we're out fishing, we're out hunting, we're turning side by side, facing away, right? So
Hmm.
as a man making content for men, I want to come alongside the men I'm talking to, not be in their face, because in their face is aggressive. If you look at nature, right? You stare a dog in the eye, the dog's coming at you. You stare a wild animal in the eye, it's coming at you. That's aggressive, that's confrontational. And so our primitive brain still recognizes that fact. And so our communication works better if we can come along side by side with people. So
Very,
that's what I'm
very,
trying to present to men,
yeah.
right? With just a little bit of vulnerability, a little bit of honesty is like, yeah, I'm not a perfect dad. Hey, I'm out doing this with my daughter because I love this time. Like, I hate fishing. I take my kid fishing almost every week. I hate fishing with a passion. I've never enjoyed fishing. It's just never been my thing. More power to anybody who enjoys it, but I hate fishing. But I take my daughter every week because my oldest daughter's 9. She loves fishing. My brother got us started the first time we took her camping. And I thought, you know what? This is an inexpensive hobby once I get my stuff. And we go fishing almost every week. And that time I have with her is priceless. So I've just learned to go, you know what? I get this out of it. Even though I hate it, I can still do it because I love this portion of it, right? Now, that is a relatable idea. You're a father, right? How many things do you do that you don't particularly enjoy doing? How many tea parties have you sat through?
Exactly.
Right? For all the men listening, how many times have you sat through a tea party with your daughter because she asked? And when she looks up at you with those little eyes, you're just like, yes, yeah, I can do it. Yes, honey, you can paint my nails. I've had my fingernails painted. I've had I haven't let them do makeup yet. They like to do my hair or play with my beard, but we haven't gotten to makeup because I don't let them wear makeup yet.
I see.
I'm sure that will come eventually. But that's a relatable side by side. That's two dads talking.
Yeah. Yeah, Brent, you do it. You do perhaps better than anybody I know. I mean, you do. You're very masculine, and you have a very masculine appearance, and just your tone and your presence. But at the same time, your videos, your content is so humble, and it's so I don't have the answers. This is what I think. This is what I've read. This is what what I believe, and. I do tea parties with my daughters, and you talk about your niece, one of your nieces, and the boyfriend that she had, and he wasn't exactly, I'll say it, he wasn't over masculine. I forget the term that you used. I think you said lackey, and you said he was a nice young man, but he just didn't have a strong male figure, and this is kind of what happens sometimes to young men.
Right. In that term, I mean, he was I always, there are times I kind of regret making that video just because I hate calling him out because
Right.
he was a delightful,
Mm.
nice, young Christian boy. They met at church. He treated her like gold, but he had never had a male role model. And my brother was trying to teach him some of the things that hadn't been taught, right? Simple things. My niece is very capable. Her father did a great job, and she can change her oil and change her tires and take care of maintenance on her car. And she can hang with the boys and hand up with the best of them. She is confident, intelligent, beautiful. She doesn't let any guy mess with her. And it was just there is more and more evidence proving that a daughter will basically marry her father, and likewise, the son will basically marry his mother, to the point where there was a scientific study where they had women smell the shirts of men who have worked out, right, and rate these men by desirability based on their smell without ever revealing the men to them. And then they added the on, right? They added the pictures on eventually. And it turns out that women picked, like 99% of the time, picked the smell of the guy who genetically was as close to her father as it came.
Wow.
Like his facial features, his skeletal structure. She picked by smell her father, basically, a man who resembled, and his DNA sequence was, right, his build was like her father. And so I'm talking to my niece and I'm watching them throughout that time I was there visiting. And I finally said, sweetheart, I love you. He seems like such a nice boy, but can you really be happy with this? Are you really happy being the masculine in the relationship. You told me you make all the decisions about where you guys are going. You make all the decisions about what you're having for dinner or when you are going out. And if you look at your father and myself and your other uncles, right? Her father and myself and one of her other uncles were all bikers. Two of the three of us are ex-military. One of her other uncles is a colonel in the military, worked his way up, started as a lieutenant, went through college, got in that way, and she is surrounded by very what you would call hyper masculinity, right? All of us are workout buffs. All of us ride motorcycles. All of us were military. All of us have a very physical masculine appearance, right? All of us carry a lot of that male attitude. Uh, he's my adopted brother. And so my brother and I used to spar all the time in high school. We got home from school every day. That's how we kept from getting in fights at school is we came home and we sparred every day after school, sometimes hand-to-hand combat, sometimes with baseball bats, sometimes with swords. I have permanent scars actually from our sparring matches. And because we just had that aggressive nature and we learned to handle it. But I looked at her and it's like, could this really make you satisfied long term? Are you okay with, taking on that role and him being so passive and so soft spoken and she's like, oh. And they were on again, off again. They had already broken up once before, and it was because of this same thing. And so, and like I said, I'm not faulting the young man. He just never had that example. And so in creating the Fallible Man, I used to be a youth minister, so I worked with a lot of teenage girls, and I saw careless young men break their hearts. I was a teenage boy, and I know I broke some hearts unnecessarily. I was not careful with my attentions. And so I witnessed that on, personally and on multiple fronts. I watched my wife's friends over the years go like, why isn't my boyfriend more like you? It's like, because he's an idiot. I don't know what to say to that. And so finally it was, hey, you should put something together. You should write a book or something. And it kind of blew up into this, but it was like, I think of all those young men who are good young men. They're just lacking a good example. They're lacking positive male role models, right? When I was a youth minister, I had the fortune of working with two young men who their mother had a boyfriend, but I mean, they were poverty was an understatement. I cut their hair. They come over to my house. I cut their hair. I sewed their clothes. Part of the time they ate at my house. And they were exceptional young men, but they didn't have a good relationship with their mom's boyfriend at the time. And they went on to have a great relationship with him. But at the time, they just were lacking that male figure. And for a short time, I got to be that. And it was very fulfilling personally, but it was also very fulfilling. I watched them grow on to be successful and healthy contributing members to society, right? They have their own families now. They're great dads. And it's like someone took the time, right? That's all it boiled down to. Someone took the time. I look at our elementary schools here in town. They are pre-COVID, we're dying to get men to come in and read stories to the kids because the school recognized the need for positive male role models because there are a lot of homes without it, right? 1 in 4 kids is fatherless. The father is either never there, completely absent, or not in the picture at all anymore. And so even the school district, which I can criticize a lot of things about the public school system, and I generally love the public school system, but even our little school district recognized the lack of positive male role models in the lives of these young children.
Amazing. I remember seeing the statistics on a young boy watching a man, or more importantly, his father read, did incredible things to them as far as reading in the future.
Yes.
Just that
Books are
vision.
right. People, I've seen too many parents who don't seem to understand what they say is about 10% of what their kids get. anytime I have any kind of confrontation with my daughters, right, for the next hour, I am just mulling over how that went, going, yeah, I had to raise my voice because they weren't listening. But how did I handle it physically? Because they see what you do. So, yeah, a young man seeing his father read embeds that, because we all idolize our fathers.
Right.
Even kids with dads that are not really active, right, are more absentee. We idolize our fathers. And a lot of times the father is out of the home, even a good dad at home with his family, trying to be a good husband, trying to be a good father. A lot of times they're out working, right? I heard a recording recently talking about, if I'm in the home this much, it's because I'm not out there providing for you. Or I can be out there making a living, providing for you so you can have these things, so you can have what I can give you, but you don't get my time, right? There doesn't seem to be a balance in home life when it comes to that. And so a lot of times kids are reduced to only seeing their parents in passing. My father-in-law, good man, right? He worked his butt off, had some businesses over the years, worked in construction for years and years, worked in the timber industry. But I mean, he got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, was gone before anybody got up, and he'd get home at 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, and he'd been out working all day. Part of the time it was traveling to a job site. Part of the time it was just, working 14, 16-hour days. And he'd come home and eat dinner and watch the news and go to bed and get up and do it again the next day, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. And if he wasn't working on the weekend on his normal job, he had side jobs going to make sure that he could feed his children, keep them in clothes, provide for his family. It wasn't a luxurious living, but he worked his fingers to the bone. He literally worked a hole into the bottom of his foot at one point because there was just no end. It was, I will provide, I will take care of. And the exchange on that was he wasn't home a lot. And that's what happens is a lot of time we get to see that image. Dad comes home, takes off his boots. You have an hour to 2 hours to see how that interacts. And a lot of time, men need quiet time. Men need time to decompress and wind down. That's how we de-stress. And unfortunately, we need to expand our capacity. I was just having a great conversation with Brett Jones of the Relationship Warriors podcast and the Warrior Man podcast. And he brought up a really good point of you need to flop that. Yes, that is how men decompress. That is how men de-stress and are their best. They need that quiet time. They need to sit and be calm and be quiet and let everything go. But we can't do that at this day and age. With more and more demand on our time, we have to come home even after a 10-hour, 12-hour day, right? And then put into our families. We got to spend the time with the kids. We've got to spend the time with our spouses if we want to maintain our marriage. We've got to put in the time helping out, changing diapers, making dinner, helping with chores around the house. And then when the dust settles for the evening, you can have a little bit of quiet time. But we've got to expand that capacity instead of trying to come home and go, nope, I'm going to check out for 30 or 40 minutes. Did you ever see the show Last Man Standing?
Yes.
I loved that series. I loved Tim Allen.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point in the series, they decide to get a maid, right? And he comes home and automatically his daughter's just descend on him. Dad, I need this. Dad, I need this. And she's like, no, 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 no. New rule. For 30 minutes after he gets home, nobody talks to the father. And he's like, oh, she's like, for an hour after he gets home, nobody talks to. And we all want that as men because we need that time to decompress. But it's just not a realistic approach because you have however long before, right? I look at it, I get home from my normal 9 to 5 job at about 4:15 to 4:30, depending on the day. I have until I put my kids to bed at 7:30 to impact their lives on those days, to be a parent, to be a father, and to set the example. So how I choose to spend my time is important. What I choose to do with them is important. What I choose to focus on with them is important. If I come home and turn on the television, that's why we have couch potato generations at this point. Because half the time we come home, we turn on that television, we're not actually watching anything.
Right.
We're just tuning everything out. So if we come home and just click that on, yeah, our kids are going to grow up and be unhealthy and be inactive and be couch potatoes because this is how you spend your time, Dad. So that's how they're going to spend their time. Little eyes see. If you spend time reading with your kids, they're going to value books. They're going to value reading. My kids are amazed at how many books I read. And it's like, okay, well, you notice we have all these bookshelves for you guys. There's a reason. This is important stuff. This is where you will actually learn things. I actually pay my daughters to learn. I pay them to read books on business and finance and marketing and stuff like that. Stuff they're not going to learn in school. I incentivize it with a little bit of money, and there are conditions on it, but I want them not only to see me reading, I want them to be focused on learning, the value of learning. And so a lot of the books I read are business books. A lot of the books I read are finance books. I'm trying to grow, and I want to make sure they see me trying to grow because it's all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I remember you saying that you actually buy the book and you have to okay it. And you mentioned some fiction that's kind of nice, but nonfiction is where you really learn. I also love what you said about 10% of what they say is what the kids grab onto. There's a famous author that I always take. He was dying of pancreatic cancer, and he had some advice, and I can't remember his name. And I share it with my daughters, and I said, when picking out friends or boyfriends or anything like that, listen to a little bit what they say, but really watch what they do. Watch what they do. We talk a lot about discipline. I love to talk about it. I think it's the kind of root to a lot of great decisions and a lot of great outcomes. And you've got such great content, like on cooking, like on incentivizing your children, on relationships with your wife, on leadership. You're very well rounded, and while it's geared towards men, I agree with what you said. It really can be moved anywhere. And a big question that you ask, Brent, is very simple question. Quite often is why. You spend a lot of time on why.
It's why is the most underutilized question in the world. I literally make my friends crazy with that. And I always, as long as I can remember, like I drove teachers insane in high school because I was not sufficiently satisfied with, because this is what the book said. That's not a reason for anything. And if you drill down on that, you lose a lot of falsehoods in your life, right? I have one of my friends who, like, he does it to himself now. Whenever he's talking to me, I don't even know how to say it, right? He'll say something, and I'll kind of look at him, and he's like, "Right? Why? Because of this." It's like, because, and like he will drill down in his own life whenever he's face to face with me because he knows I'm going to come up with that. That's the one question I'm going to ask. Like, okay, we're doing it, but why are we doing it? We do so much stuff out of habit. One of the examples I use is I use Hellman's mayonnaise, right? And I have no illusions. I use it because that's what my mother and my grandmother bought. I don't know that it's the best mayonnaise. I don't know that it's the perfect mayonnaise, but it's what my mother and my grandmother always had in our home. My grandmother lived with us till the day she died. She moved in, I think, when I was 2. And so I had my grandmother in my home my whole life. Little Southern woman. My family's Texan. So that is embedded. I use Hellmann's mayonnaise. There are some other things I've shed uh, about other condiments that I don't necessarily swear by now,
I see.
but that is, I mean, that is the why for why I choose that, right? And I don't pretend it's not. But we take that to deeper things. It's like, why do you watch this show? Well, what do you actually get out of it? Well, I watch it because of this. Why do you like that? Well, I just enjoy these. But why do you enjoy those? Do you know? I, if you start drilling down and we get to the fundamentals, Simon Sinek's book on, start with why, it's an amazing book and anybody should read that. He really got a good grip on that one. But if you drill down to why you do things, you start finding out that you do a lot of things because you always have. And I've got nothing wrong with traditions. Okay. There's nothing wrong with having valuable traditions, whether it's a sentimental reason or whatever. There's nothing wrong with it. But when you go through most of your life acting certain ways, believing certain things, doing certain things, but you don't actually know why you do them other than that's just what you always did. That's what we did in my parents' home. So I do that. That's what and it usually goes back to there, right? It stops there because we don't necessarily recollect that our parents did it that way because their parents did it that way. And so that's just not something if you go through the entire education system, that is not a question that they push. I don't know why that they don't push the question why. Um, I could come up with lots of speculative answers on that, but it's not in all of the years I went to school, which, I'm not a very educated man. I graduated high school, but I don't have any formal education over that. I was always a common sense kind of guy. I know a lot of intellectuals. I was always more of a common sense kind of guy. I like learning through experiencing life and asking my own questions and blazing my own path. I can't help it. My mom loves to razz me about that. She's like, yeah, no, we knew you were going to find your own way. There was no point even telling you some things. Just, we had to let you just do it because you were going to do it anyway. But for me, that was part of finding the why. If I did it and I experienced it and I had to deal with the consequences, I therefore had to formulate my own thoughts on it, my own opinion on it. And if you start picking apart your life, and it really will pick apart your life, all you have to do is start with any decision you make and follow it with the question, why? Why did I just make that decision? If you pursue it, pursue it to a painful point on any decision you make, it will drill down to, I've always done it that way. Somebody that I respect and look up to told me that's the way we should do it, or I don't know another way to do it. And because I've never tried another way to do it because I've always done it that way.
Hmm.
That is 9 times out of 10, that is where you will get to. And it's okay if you get to a point where you get down like on a silly one, like, why do I watch this kind of TV show? I just like this kind of TV show. And that's okay. It's okay to find entertainment, but find that you like it because it's entertainment. That entertains you. There's no value to the show necessarily. It entertains you, and that gives you a moment of pleasure and a moment to check out. But at least understand why. Actually, I saw your podcast is going to center around discipline, and I am a huge fan of discipline. That's I think you're picking a great topic to base your podcast around there. I think it's one of these 7 core tenets of being a very whole person is developing discipline. So
Yeah, I find that many challenges that I faced in the past, how I solved them, really the first kind of step was discipline. More about why. I have a good friend who their family would make this pot roast once a year. I forget when, but they'd always cut the ends off. And so she asked, "Why do you cut the ends off?" And then, well, that's what my mother did. And so she asked the grandmother, and she said, "Well, that's what that's what my mother did." And she tried it. It was years, Brent. She would, "Why do you cut the ends off?" And aunts and uncles, "Well, we just always cut them off." About a couple years later, she actually found she uncle, and she said, "Oh, the reason why they did that is because the pan was too small and it wouldn't fit in there. So they used to cut it off." so, so it got passed down and it wasn't even necessary. But again, she kept asking why. And I love you go into advice about marriage. And you just recently you started a date night with your wife. Now you've been married over 20 years.
yeah, we I'm the first person to tell you, my wife doesn't even have to be on the line for me to admit I'm not a perfect husband. I know I fall short so often. I'm a homebody. Like, there's nowhere I'd rather be than at home most of the time. And my wife she wants to go out and do things and see things. And to me, I, I'm I'm an extrovert by trade and an introvert by nature. growing up a minister's son and being a youth minister, I had to be extroverted. I had to be out and socialize with the public and visit with the congregation and be in the public eye. And so it's a very learned trait for me. Whereas me at my core, Brent likes to sit at home, and I like to spend time with my kids, and I want to sit in my home and I want to be at home. We wrapped up last night. I sat down on my back porch after I put my kids to bed and lit a cigar and sipped on a little bourbon and just had a conversation with my wife. And to me, that is like the perfect kind of day. Right. And so I've always, like every young couple, we started out very, very poor. I think between the two of us, we were making like $30,000 a year or something starting out. It was nothing, right? We're scratching by and struggling, and hot dogs and top ramen and all that good stuff you do as a young married couple. And first it was we couldn't afford to do things, which suited me because I didn't want to do anything anyway. So we curl up at home with a movie. Then as life progressed, it just became normal, and it became normal. And it's horrible because I grew up going to marriage classes. I grew up listening to like just spectacular speakers. I can't count how many times I've been through the 5 love languages book, right? As not only just a book, but like in classes at churches and stuff like that. Um, I've gone to 2 and 3 day marriage and enrichment seminars. I got to do one where my wife and I and 10 other couples joined the speaker and his wife on 2 houseboats for 3 days on Table Rock Lake.
Wow.
It was awesome. And I'm still too stupid to learn things sometimes. So, I didn't even take away everything out of that I could have. But looking over the last several years, we just started actually having date night after never. I realized like my oldest daughter is 9, and I'm the insecure parent. I'm the one who goes, nope, no one's good enough to watch my kids. Nope, don't have a babysitter. I don't trust anybody to watch my kids. Nope, 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 nope. I don't want it. I want to be here taking care of my children. I don't trust people with my children. I am to say I'm overprotective is a selling it short. So it took my mom and dad actually moving in with us during my dad's last year of his life because I trust my mom, right? We've gone out once or twice where we were visiting like my wife's parents, and we left them with her mom, and that was fine. We could go have a date that way. And we have a good friend who, was our roommate for a while, and we've left them with her a couple times. But there's never been a regular kind of, and now that our children are 7 and 9 and my mom lives with us, we're trying to get that date night in there because we're realizing there is no time for Sarah and I at home. I work 40 to 50 hours a week, usually 40. They don't like it when I work overtime. It gets expensive for them, I guess. My wife is a part-time bookkeeper. She has 2 clients. And then we have the Fallible Man. And I work more hours a week on this than I do on my normal job. Mm-hmm. I joke about it with the guys I work with. I start to leave for the day. I'm like, oh, off to work now. I go to work to breathe because I log 70, 80 hours a week on this with no problem.
Wow.
And so like I have Wednesday nights are my nights with my kids. Nothing on the Fallible Man, nothing else there. I don't do housework. I don't fix anything. I don't do anything. I come home. Wednesday nights is my night with my children. We can go to the park. We can curl up and watch a movie, but that is my time with my children. I guard that ferociously at this point. I've started trying to do that with Monday nights with my wife because I realized we had just not taken that time, and we've got everything going on, and we're losing. I get up at 4 o'clock every day. I function better. I think better when I start early in the morning. So I get up way before my 9 to 5 job, work for a couple hours, go to work, come home. I put my kids to bed between 7:30 and 8, and 8:30, 9 o'clock, I'm going to bed. My wife is a night owl. And so my wife got up with the kids. It was the kiddos all day. She's waiting for them to go to bed. And then she's ready to connect, and I'm going to bed. Right. I'm like, I'm done for the day. And so I realized that we need this time and we have to protect that. We just went through a marriage. It was a parenting class, but one of the things they really brought up in the class was a strong marriage, having a strong marriage, making that a priority in front of your kids helps them in the future, right? And it's like, man, I haven't been prioritizing having that one-on-one time with my wife to just connect where we can sit down and have a cup of coffee and sit face to face and she can tell me about what's going on and we can actually have real conversations about the kids, or we actually try and leave the kids out of it. Like on Monday nights, if we get to go out, and my mom's been out of town, so we haven't been able to go out the last couple of weeks, but we've gone and found a new favorite restaurant that we like to sit and have a burger at and have a beer and just talk. And we don't talk about the kids. That's one of the few rules. We talk about the business some, but we don't talk about the kids
Hmm.
because we have just not focused on making that a priority time. And I realized that was one of my failings as a husband is I hadn't focused on making my wife a priority, especially since my kids were born. In fact, I frequently use them as an excuse to not just have time with my wife because I love, and that's not because I don't love my wife. It's because I adore my children. They are everything to me. I love spending time with them. I can't get enough time with them. And so I would use it as an excuse because, like, well, Sarah and I have got time. We've got history. We're okay. We don't need that as badly as my children need me right now. Right. And that was my justification. But the reality is, my daughters are watching how I'm treating their mother. Right. This goes back to that, what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
My daughters are watching visibly every day how I treat my wife. They're watching me spend time with their mother. They're watching whether I defend her, whether I make her a priority, how I interact with her. We have some friends who used to tease us because even after all these years, like I can't be around my wife and not touch her, right? And I'm not talking like sexually touch her. I'm talking like I can't not hold her hand. I can't not put my hand on her shoulder. I can't not put my hand on her hip as I'm walking by her. I adore my wife, but we haven't really focused on us time as a priority. And not only is that neglecting my wife and me coming short as a husband, it's also doing a disservice to my daughters because my daughters need to have that expectation of the man they marry eventually. And I really even hate saying those words because at 7 and 9, I don't even want to think about that possibility yet. But I have to think about that possibility as a father because I am setting the stage for how my children will expect a man to treat them by the way I treat their mother. And so it's really a holistic approach because it's cyclical, right? How I treat my children will treat their children that way.
That's right.
How I treat their mother, they will expect their husbands to treat them that way. How I act as a man, they will have that expectation, right? So I try and eat healthier. Like I never ate vegetables. I started eating vegetables after I had kids. And I've always been very honest with them. They're like, "Ooh, do you like that, Dad? That's a lot of vegetables." Like, no, I hate this. Then why are you eating them? Because I need to eat them. My body needs them. You
Discipline.
need to eat what's healthy, whether you like it or not, right? So if I don't prioritize taking care of myself physically, taking care of myself mentally, if I don't prioritize my relationship with their mother and them, I'm failing as a man. It is my job to set the bar so high, right? I actually make a shirt that I saw on my website. It says "Memento Mori," right? People die, right? It says, "Live your life in a way that your sons want to be you, and your daughters will accept nothing less than you." And so that is, I mean, this all comes back right into the root of what the Fallible Man is all about. I started a journey to be a better husband, a better father, a better man, because I feel the weight of my children watching me. I feel the weight of my children's children watching me, whether they know it or not. And so for me to be the best husband and the best father I can, I have to become the best man I can. And there's just no wiggle room on that. Some people would call it unrealistic or unfair, but that's my greatest ambition in life has always been that one day when I die, right? Death isn't a big thing for me, but when I die, on my tombstone, the only thing I really care, the only epitaph I need is he was a good father and a good husband. If that can genuinely be said about me, I will have lived my life correctly because that's what's important to me. I have to set that bar.
That's beautiful, Brent. I think you're doing it. I think you're doing it very well with the content you have. I think that's um, admirable. Uh, really admirable, Brent. I enjoyed your time today. Thank you so much. Tell me how and us how we can get in touch with you. How can we? You've got a lot of great merchandise, got a great website, got great content. How can we get there?
Well, absolutely. Thank you for that. I have my website is www.thefallibleman.com. And you can get to my podcast, my YouTube channel. You can get to everything we do. We have a blog. We have merchandise of all kinds. We have content coming out. I think I'm at around 3 videos a week right now on my
Wow.
YouTube channel. We're started live streams. I told you I'm doing a live stream tonight. That's a new thing. This is my 3rd live stream. I'm starting to try and build that into just part of the cycle for me as a every other week thing on Mondays. But thefallibleman.com is the surest direction to everything we do. Uh, but hey, let me give you guys something. Because if they go to https colon whack whack, right, the whole internet thing, go to thefallibleman.ck.page. It is a landing page. All right. That's why it's got the weird address, thefallibleman.ck.page. And if they go there and enter their email, it's going to send a confirmation email. You can opt out of, I don't, you could ask my subscriber list. I don't email people a lot. I'm really bad about my email list. But if they want to give me their email address, they can unsubscribe at any time. They'll get a free copy of my book, uh, Becoming Unbreakable: 7 Skills to Develop to Build Resilience in an Ever-Changing World. It is a free ebook download, no catch. Download the book and unsubscribe right after that. I don't care. It's something I want to share with people. It's what we're actually talking about on my live stream tonight. But that link will be good. I don't know when this episode is going to air, but it's not going away anytime soon. So they can go there, get their free ebook. Like I said, delete. They don't have to follow it. They can unsubscribe right after that. I don't even care. I just want to get good content into people's hands to encourage them.
Brent Dowlin, the Fallible Man. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and it's just so inspiring. I've got daughters myself, and I love it. I love what you're doing. Thanks again. You be well.
Thank you.